Draymond Green made headlines again this week. But this time it was not for something he said on the court. The Golden State Warriors veteran forward appeared on Inside the NBA on Wednesday and walked back a comment he had made just days earlier on his own podcast, where he suggested that head coach Steve Kerr was unlikely to return to the bench next season. Green's updated take was notably warmer. "I think and hope he's coming back," Green said during the TV appearance. "I don't know more than anyone else in the world knows outside of what I do know is he wants to coach. That is a meaningful shift." Earlier, Green had told listeners of his podcast that he believed Kerr would not return as the team's head coach following Golden State's exit from the play-in tournament. That comment sparked immediate speculation across the league about the future direction of one of the NBA's most decorated coaching relationships. The fact that Green changed his position publicly and did so on national television suggests he may have had conversations behind the scenes that gave him a reason to feel more optimistic. It is also worth noting the setting. Inside the NBA is not a casual platform. Appearing on that show and offering a revised opinion is a deliberate move. So where does the situation actually stand? According to reports, the Warriors front office and Kerr have already met twice since the conclusion of the 2025-26 season. The absence of any reports pointing to significant friction between the two sides is itself a signal worth paying attention to. When coaches and front offices reach an impasse, word tends to leak out quickly in today's NBA media environment. The relative silence suggests those meetings have been productive or at least civil. That said, the situation is not fully resolved. Reporter Brett Siegel of Clutch Points noted that the most recent meeting between Kerr and the Warriors centered on two major topics: whether Kerr would be willing to make philosophical changes to his coaching approach, and whether the front office would commit to making more aggressive moves to improve the roster's ability to compete. Both are significant sticking points. On the first issue, Kerr has been known throughout his coaching career for running a specific offensive system built around movement, ball sharing, and spacing. Critics have argued in recent seasons that his unwillingness to deviate from that system has held certain players back and limited the team's ability to adapt in difficult moments. An anonymous player recently told The Athletic that Kerr's handling of Jonathan Kuminga was a reason they considered him among the less impressive coaches in the league. On the second issue, roster construction, the Warriors have been reluctant to part with multiple first-round draft picks in pursuit of a high-profile trade. That philosophy has kept the team relatively stable, but has also prevented Golden State from making the kind of bold move that could push them back into true championship contention. If either or both of those conversations break down, it is possible Kerr walks away. But the early signals, combined with Green's revised comments, point to a resolution that keeps Kerr in place for at least one more season. Green also used a national platform on Wednesday to address his earlier comment that Kerr had limited his offensive development during his time in Golden State. He stood by the sentiment, but added important context. "I think every basketball player in the world has some gripe that they wish their coach would have done differently," Green said. "But make no mistake about it, I also said all the incredible things, how much of a better man he's made me. It is a fair point." Green was a far more dangerous offensive threat in the 2015-16 season, when he averaged 14 points per game and shot 38.8% from three-point range. Those numbers have rarely been approached in the years since. Green's offensive role narrowed significantly as the team evolved around Stephen Curry. Whether that was primarily Kerr's decision, a reflection of roster priorities, or simply a natural evolution of Green's role is a debate without a clean answer. What is clear is that Green, Curry, and Kerr built something extraordinary together for championships in 8 years. A dynasty built on trust, system, and an unusual willingness to prioritize the collective over individual numbers. That history matters as the Warriors try to figure out what comes next for a franchise that is navigating a difficult transition with an aging core and an uncertain future. The coming weeks will determine whether Kerr is part of that future. For now, based on Draymond Green's most recent comments, the smart bet is that he will be. There is also the question of what a coaching change would even look like for Golden State. Kerr has been with the organization for over a decade. Replacing him would require finding a candidate capable of managing a roster that still includes Stephen Curry, while simultaneously overseeing a long-term rebuild. For all the frustrations of recent seasons, Kerr's experience and his relationship with the team's remaining core represent genuine organizational value. Walking away from that without exhausting every option would be a costly gamble. The Golden State Warriors are not exactly known for their deep reservoir of young talent right now, but at least one NBA player believes the franchise has something real in Will Richard. The rookie guard received a vote for the league's most underrated player in a wide-ranging anonymous survey conducted by The Athletic. Josh Robbins, Sam Amick, and Joe Vardon of The Athletic polled 161 players across the league with a range of questions. Among those who responded to the most underrated question, 151 players in all, Jalen Johnson and Derek White tied for the most votes. Richard was the only Golden State player who received a mention in that category. The vote is a small but meaningful piece of validation for a player who entered the league as a 56th overall pick in the 2025 draft. Late second-round selections rarely stick in the NBA, let alone see meaningful minutes during their first season. Richard was an exception to that trend. Across 69 games this season, Richard averaged 6.4 points and 20.0 minutes per contest, including 21 starts. Those are not eye-popping offensive numbers, but the context makes them more impressive. The 23-year-old was fifth on the team in total minutes played, which is an unusual distinction for someone taken so deep into the draft, playing the fifth most minutes on an NBA roster in your rookie year, regardless of where you were drafted, reflects real trust from the coaching staff. What earned Richard that trust most clearly was his defense. He averaged 2.1 steals per 36 minutes this season, a rate that ranked tied for seventh in the entire league. For a team that has consistently valued defenders who can guard multiple positions and create turnovers, Richard fit the profile almost immediately. His offensive game is still a work in progress. Richard shot just 33.5% from three-point range this season after showing a more encouraging stroke early in the year. For guards in today's NBA, three-point shooting is essentially a prerequisite for earning consistent rotation minutes. If Richard cannot push that percentage closer to 37 or 38%, his role could remain limited regardless of what he offers on the defensive end. The good news is that Richard has a path to more opportunity next season. Both Jimmy Butler and Moses Moody are expected to miss at least the first half of the 2026-27 campaign due to knee injuries. That opens up real minutes for players like Richard to step into larger roles and prove they belong. If he can show improvement in his shot and continue delivering on the defensive end, the Warriors could have a rotation piece worth keeping for the long term. Beyond Richard, the same athletic polls surfaced some other interesting results connected to the Warriors. Brandon Podziemski received 2 of the 81 votes in the most overrated category, a result that will likely irritate his supporters given how consistent he has been for a team that has asked him to do far too much at times. The most notable portion of the poll regarding Golden State, however, involved head coach Steve Kerr. Among 100 players surveyed on coaching impressions, 6 voted Kerr as the least impressive coach in the league. One respondent specifically pointed to his handling of Jonathan Kuminga as the reason for that assessment. Kuminga, who was dealt to the Atlanta Hawks, had a complicated and publicly tense final stretch in San Francisco, and Kerr drew criticism from multiple angles for how that situation was managed. At the same time, for the 146 players who weighed in on the coaching questions voted Kerr as the most impressive coach in the league. That split, some critics, some admirers, probably captures where Kerr sits in the broader coaching conversation right now. He is a proven winner with 4 championships to his name, but recent seasons have raised legitimate questions about adaptability and player development decisions. What ties these two storylines together is a broader question the Warriors are navigating as an organization. Richard's emergence represents a low-cost, high-upside path to building around Stephen Curry, getting more of those players right, developing late picks into rotation contributors, could define whether Golden State become competitive again without needing to make a blockbuster trade. The jury is still out, but a vote from a fellow NBA player is a reasonable start. It is also worth considering what the anonymous nature of these polls reveals. When players vote for a peer as the most underrated in the league, they are doing so without any public accountability. There is no incentive to campaign for someone. A vote for Will Richard under those conditions carries more weight than any post-game quote ever could. It means someone who shares a floor with NBA players every night watched what Richard did and decided it deserved more recognition. That kind of peer validation is hard to manufacture. It suggests that opposing players or teammates who see him daily in practice notice something the broader public has not fully caught up to yet. For a player entering his second season with a chance to earn a bigger role, that is exactly the reputation worth building. The Warriors will be counting on players like Richard to fill the void left by injuries. And if he delivers, this poll vote will quickly look like foresight. The Golden State Warriors could have a key question answered within days regarding a potential trade for Milwaukee Bucks superstar Giannis Antetokounmpo. Sunday's NBA draft lottery is shaping up to be far more than a routine ping-pong ball event for the franchise. Depending on where Golden State lands in the draft order, it could fundamentally reshape what they can offer Milwaukee and whether a deal is even worth pursuing. The Bucks made their timeline clear this week, announcing that they intend to resolve Antetokounmpo's situation before next month's draft. That puts the clock on every team believed to be circling the two-time MVP, including Golden State. A trade involving a 31-year-old Antetokounmpo, who appeared in just 35 games this past season, was already going to be a complex and expensive proposition. The draft lottery adds another layer of uncertainty to an already complicated calculus. Here is why Sunday matters so much to the Warriors specifically. Golden State enters the lottery with the 11th best odds for the first overall pick, a 9.4% chance of jumping into the top four. If that happens, the franchise's entire trade posture changes overnight. A top four pick is an entirely different asset than an 11th pick. It dramatically increases the appeal of any package Golden State could put together, and it gives the front office genuine leverage in negotiations that they currently do not have. If Golden State does not move up, the path to a Giannis trade looks significantly harder. The Miami Heat were reportedly closer to completing a deal for Antetokounmpo before the mid-season deadline. Other teams entering the offseason with deeper reservoirs of draft capital will also be competing for the same player. Without a marquee pick to anchor an offer, it is difficult to see how the Warriors assemble a package that competes with what other suitors can put on the table. The shape of a potential Golden State offer has also evolved since earlier conversations about a deal. Before the midseason deadline, the Warriors were exploring a package centered on Draymond Green and Jonathan Kuminga. Both of those options are no longer available in the same way. Kuminga was traded to the Atlanta Hawks, removing him from consideration. Any deal now would likely need to include Jimmy Butler's contract as a salary matching component, along with significant combination of draft picks and possibly Brandon Podziemski, who grew up in Wisconsin and could carry some appeal to the Milwaukee front office from a local connection standpoint. That is a heavy ask, particularly for an organization that has been cautious about surrendering multiple first-round selections. Whether the Warriors decide the risk is worth it, either with or without a top four pick, may also come down to a broader philosophical question the front office is already grappling with this offseason. Are they rebuilding around youth, or are they making one more push for a title with Stephen Curry before that window definitively closes? The situation in Milwaukee has grown notably tense in recent weeks. Comments from Antetokounmpo himself following the Bucks' hiring of new head coach Taylor Jenkins raised eyebrows across the league. When asked about a new hire, Antetokounmpo referred to Milwaukee in the third person, saying he thought they were getting a good coach and a good person, language that many observers read as a clear signal that Antetokounmpo already considers himself on his way out. Milwaukee co-owner Jimmy Haslam did nothing to dampen that speculation, openly acknowledging to reporters that the team had informed Jenkins that Giannis may or may not be with us going forward. That kind of public admission from an ownership group is rare and significant. It confirms what has been building for months. A departure feels close to inevitable. For Golden State, the opportunity is real, but the obstacles are substantial. Sunday's lottery result will not make the decision for the Warriors, but will clarify the options in front of them. A top four pick changes the conversation. Staying put at 11 keeps it narrow. Either way, the franchise will need to move quickly. Milwaukee has set a deadline, and the rest of the league is paying close attention. There is also a scenario the Warriors must honestly consider, passing on Antetokounmpo entirely. Acquiring a 31-year-old player who played only 35 games this season, regardless of his talent level, carries enormous risk. Long-term injury concerns the size of any trade package required, and reality where Golden State is in its competitive cycle all pushback against the idea of going all in. If the Warriors land a top 4 pick on Sunday and choose to keep it rather than use it as trade currency, nobody could reasonably call that the wrong decision. Building through the draft, developing young players like Will Richard, and letting the roster organically grow around Curry's final productive years may prove to be a more sustainable path. The lottery on Sunday will not just reveal whether Golden State can chase Giannis. It will force the organization to define exactly what kind of team it wants to be and how much risk it is willing to absorb to get there